Greetings, y'all. Welcome to Moments of Magic. My name is Indigo Blackbird. I'm a birth keeper and a wise woman helping pregnant women and families to experience spiritual enlightenment through pregnancy and caretaking. I guide them through their process, and today's video is going to be about how I had a natural birth and a bit about my positive birth story. So this is going to be here on IG, and it's also going to be put on YouTube. So if you missed it, you can always catch it again. I will upload it so that you can have access to this. I love coming on this platform and talking this way because I get a chance to answer any questions that come up. And in the future, I'm going to start hosting more events where I can give you a little bit more time ahead of time to prepare for this interaction. So I started recording this video before, and this seems to be a theme lately of things that are happening with me, and I'm being pushed to come here and talk to you on this platform. So I'm like, hey, why not? I'm just going to come here. I have music playing in the background because my neighbors are up and active and doing their own thing, and I really wanted to be able to at least create some kind of boundary and container for this particular topic. So I gave a little disclaimer. I have a notebook, so I'm giving this disclaimer again now with notes to help me to stay on track and to get you the information that I really intend to get to you, because sometimes you get redirected in the moment, even when you plan for things to go a certain way, which is pretty fitting because the same things can happen with birth too. But so again, this is talking about how I had a natural birth story and also how you could possibly have a natural birth story. But I want to elaborate on what natural birth is, right? So birth is already natural inherently. This idea that you have to chase or do certain things to make birth natural is an inverted perspective of what's happening. What most people mean when they say they want to have a natural birth is either one, they want to deliver their baby through their vaginal canal, or they want to have no to little medical intervention. So really, you want to be left the frick alone. You want to do what your body's already doing. That's natural. There's nothing you have to try at. You're not sitting here and be like, all right, body, make a baby. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you were, trying to be fertile and working on fertility treatments, so you were directly talking to yourself like that. But in general, you're not a part of that process. Birth is autonomous, meaning it happens on its own, whether you involve yourself in it consciously or not. There are plenty of mothers who have given birth to children who didn't have to sit and take birth classes and invest in doulas or, meditate for 30 hours. Are there differences? Absolutely. But it's not required. There's no prerequisites for giving birth aside from what's inherently provided for you already. So just wanted to speak about that because otherwise natural birth is not clearly defined. And that perspective could be different to each person who is pregnant or who is going to deliver. So, and if you can picture the birth that you want, what that would be like, who you'd be around, what would you be feeling? How would you navigate through that process with incredible feeling? It can be extremely powerful to help you. And visualization works for a lot of people. So, again, going back to what I said about planning. So there's something called the birth plan, right? But the birth plan is not something that you create to control, because birth is about surrendering, right? So it's actually just meant to be a way to determine and to assess and create that map we talked about for your desires. What is it that you desire, and how can we see them so that we can create the steps to best attain that outcome or that result, right? So that's a little bit about natural birth just to start, but I'm going to go into how I was able to have a natural birth and go from there. So I was already doing womb work. Womb work can be defined as directly engaging with my feminine essence, with my body, with my womb, uterus, vagina, vulva, all that part of my sacral chakra and my reproductive center. So I was directly meditating and speaking to that area, and seeing what would come up through my intuition and having conversation. And yes, there is a consciousness in the womb. Womb consciousness is real. Whether or not you're pregnant, decide to have children, or do not want children ever, if you menstruate, if you have a uterus, or you don't have a womb or not, there is energy there because everything is already symbolic. So you just connecting to that center will bring you that access or bring you that information if you allow yourself to receive it. So I was doing things like that. I was already on the path to becoming a doula, to becoming a birth keeper, more specifically. If you don't know the difference between the two, I do have a post here on my IG. You can go check that out. But I became a birth keeper later because I was only familiar with the term doula at that time. So I was already actively doing yoga asana practices that were yin focused, learning more about menstruation from a spiritual perspective and pregnancy and childbirth. And I was really passionate about learning. So I got deep into research and study. And that included physiology and anatomy of the body, what's happening during birth, what's actually necessary. And there's something called the radical birth keeper, which is really popular. I'm resonating more with the quantum birth keeper, even though I don't technically use those terms a lot, but quantum birth keeper would be closer to what it is I am, because I do let these spiritual parts of myself be presented in my everyday life, and I do not separate that from birth. I don't see a lot of people talking about this. I see people wanting to have spiritual lives and wanting to raise their children a certain way and to be spiritual during birth, but they still kind of don't have as many options, and they resort to going to practices or just thinking home birth means it's spiritual, or going to the hospital is more spiritual because otherwise it's traumatic and I can die, and all these things that don't really clearly create a personalized experience with what's already happening for them. Because birth is an initiation to do some deep shadow work, to do some deep healing, and to quite literally rebirth yourself. It's an opportunity to rebirth the world that you're going to live in. And it's not just about birth. It's about the wholeness of the entire being. This person's emotions, how they were brought up, how they feel about themselves, what's going on in them internally, who are they around, what are they putting into themselves, etc. So if you just focus on a baby coming out of your body, you're not going to get as much as you could out of the experience as if you were fully committed to bettering your overall self and having a deeper understanding of this being an opportunity for you to connect deeper with the divine, with yourself, and to witness yourself in the act of creation. It's extremely powerful. A lot of people often cannot put words to their experience, especially when the baby gets here. They're just in this bliss state, and that's our inherent state. And we have the ability to directly experience that as people who give birth, as women. So, and yes, this is a channel, this is a platform that is directed towards women and families specifically. That is my niche and who I work with specifically. But there are other people who do not identify as women, and that's okay. But this is who I'm speaking to directly, because this is the way that we were wired to do things without being told. If you look at a child will understand these things and see woman and man, and often call them even mommy and daddy. Not because those people have children, but because there's a universal understanding that's there that they just get from existing, and what they recognize from not just culture but behavior, right? So I was researching and I created myself a birth plan. I used a vision board for my birth plan, and I also did a written copy of that. I'm going to do separate videos on that also, and I also have a consultation for that. It is $116 to come up with your birth plan. It's fully detailed. There's more information. If you click the link in my bio, you can go to my portal. Just fill in the contact form. If you're not pregnant, just go down to the comment section, say what you're interested in, and I'll give you access to that and all the other free information that's loaded on my Honeybook page. So with the birth plan, I wrote out things like my name, the father of the child, who are the people that I'd want to be there during birth, what is my blood type, when was I born, what is the information that a doctor may need to pull up real quickly, but I may not have that ability to focus in that period, what kind of birth do I want to have, what interventions do I not want to have or do I want to have, if I had absolutely no choice, what are the steps that need to happen. First, I want to be asked certain questions first. I want to be fully informed. If I'm not fully informed, that I know my rights to sue or to testify or to do whatever. So really, it's all about becoming an advocate for myself. And if you don't have someone who's supporting you like a doula or a midwife, this is a great option for you to become clear on what it is that you want for yourself. You can even form that into a little booklet for you, a little pamphlet. And if you have a care provider, you can work with them over time, and you can kind of build that up based on each of your interactions and what you learn. So then by the time you're around your estimated birth date or due date, then you have all this information to pick from. Ideally, a birth plan is going to be about a page or so. You don't want it to be too long, but it can be really helpful in that way. Again, it's not about control. You cannot control what's going to happen in birth, but you can be present for it and have the tools and the resources to know how to navigate each situation so that the things flow in your favor. When I say control, I mean what's physiologically happening to you is not going to be best suited for you if you continue to try and force things. So this is where a lot of resistance comes with women towards allopathic medicine and genetic and obstetric practices regarding childbirth, because it is natural already. So if there's a stalled labor, and usually it's because the person's uncomfortable or there's something that needs to happen on an energetic level before that baby can come through. And most babies know what's happening because babies are also birthing themselves as well. It's not just the mother, it's not just the contractions. They know how to be born also, okay? And there's a level of trust that needs to happen there. But because there are time limits in institutions and in hospitals and in places that people can give birth that are outside of the home, there's usually this idea that because something's not happening, we need to rush it. We need to get things out quickly because something can happen and it goes into fear, right? So when we talk about control, that's what I mean. Because most of the time, that's just a pausing point, a break, rest. Remember, birth is a part of many cycles. So I just got a text real quick, so dang. One moment, y'all. I kind of got my life experience. So yeah, you know how it kind of like changes the flame, right? Like I was going off for a minute and then all right, reeled it in. But those are things that I was doing. And those are some of the things, you know, with birth and natural birth that are really important to note, because yes, where you are, your environment, who you're around, what their beliefs are, can influence you if you do not stand your ground and have clarity on who you are, what you value, and aren't afraid to experience the effects of your decisions and those beliefs, etc. So also what I did was not focus on the things I did not want. I focused on the things that I wanted. So traumatic birth stories, you know, all these documentaries and vlogs and people's personal videos and hearing stories from people. One, if it was people I knew, I don't want to hear it. Like, I just don't, because that's your experience and it may not be that for me. And there are times, yeah, where I could listen and someone may not have had the birth that they desired. And it's important as a birth keeper to have compassion to and to hear these stories. But for me, at the time of my pregnancy, I created a wall. I did not deny that these things existed, however. There's a difference between denial and choosing not to accept something as part of your reality, okay? Denial as an erasure, right, is completely separate from saying, hey, I want to have a positive birth, and so I'm going to look at where people were successful so I can model their behavior and obtain that result, okay? Excuse me. My daughter and I both had a cough there. So I watched a lot of positive birth stories. I listened to podcasts. I looked at evidence-based birth, and I developed a spiritual practice of visualizing what my outcome would be, what I wanted, writing these things down, creating that birth plan, having an outline, becoming clear on what my intentions are, and sticking to that no matter who or what was happening externally. This was an internal process that I stuck to, and it helped me to navigate the experience so much smoother because I wasn't dependent on anyone else to assist me. Also, for natural birth, I didn't have prenatal care externally. I didn't go to an OBGYN until maybe later in my life, and that was one of the first times in my life that I ever went to one. I just had never resonated with the idea of someone else taking care of my body. I've been in my body my entire existence so far. So there's no one who can tell me anything else that I cannot learn, given the resources, the opportunities, and the proper information. So I did that myself, and when I went, there was misinformation. I was lied to about what was happening, or rather, information was left out about what was going to be happening, and I had it recorded. I had it on my phone as evidence to prove that what people are saying about these institutions are very real. People leave this out, and if you assume anything or you have any expectation out of your own ignorance, people will try to use you or take advantage of you in a way that benefits them, and also in a way that they're unconscious of, because they think what they're doing is helpful. So a lot of what's happening too is not even necessarily people being evil or mean or corrupt, because people inherently are good, and the behaviors they're doing were adapted or adopted because they were wanting to or intending to do something good or to resolve some kind of circumstance, whether for themselves or for other people. So just wanted to explain that, because that was a huge thing. But I didn't go to people often. I really stayed my whole pregnancy with myself, really. And as I was researching, as I was learning these things, I was applying. As I was learning these things, I was applying the information. I was putting it into practice actively. So I was eating folate instead of folic acid. I was doing stretching and relaxing myself in the bath and using essential oils if I felt nauseous, and eating ginger and doing all these things from a holistic perspective. Also assessing, what is my emotional state right now? What are the things I need? What are the things that upset me? Where do I not feel full, or do I not feel whole? Why do I believe these things? And journaling. I created a journal. It was called the Mama Book, or it was something of that nature, where I could just write out my experience and keep it and be able to pass it down later in life. I didn't do that as much with my second pregnancy because I was in a different state of mind with that, but I found it really helpful. And there were times where I just did not want to write. I did not want to journal. I was resisting that so much. It just felt like so much energy. And, I made the best out of what I could with what I wanted to do in that time. So yeah, I also was doing that womb work. So I was meditating, connecting, doing massages, masturbation, to release those hormones, and just really connecting with myself, seeing myself as sacred, and not paying attention to the people who would say I was crazy, that something was going to happen to my baby, or, that there are plenty of pregnant women who work and are trying to compare me or to guilt me or to slight me from my decision making. And it became really challenging because I wasn't able to have the birth that I wanted, because I never had my own space. So the first time I gave birth at a birthing center. The second time I ended up giving birth in a hospital. I gave birth in 2019 and in 2022. 2022 is when I had my hospital birth. And a lot of that has been this shift in the past 50 years that birth is not natural, right? So this is why this idea of having a natural birth is so ludicrous to me, because it's like it's already natural. The things that become unnatural are the things that are true emergencies. When there's actual danger occurring, that's the best time for someone else to step in and to assist, right? But we don't prepare for tornadoes if we don't get a tornado warning. We don't hoard and prepare just in case the world's gonna end without any indication of such things occurring. So if there's not a need for it, why is there a demand for it, right? So yeah, there was a lot of standing my ground. building up confidence and shedding old skin. I was transforming constantly because people around me either understood or they didn't. And I didn't try to spend my time convincing people, especially later in my pregnancy, of why I needed to have the birth I had. In the beginning, I did. I tried to do that, and it was exhausting because people didn't change their mind anyway. And most of the time, when the baby gets here, they don't even care how you plan to give birth or how you gave birth. They're just like, oh, the baby's here, right? And there's also this gap of postpartum care, or postnatal care, which is something else I'll talk about in a different video. But there are so many other things that are more important than how someone or where someone wants to give birth. The actual process that's happening internally is often forgotten about, it's not recognized, and there's a lack of support that needs to be there. And of course, yes, one person can do this themselves. It is a solo journey in that sense. And then there's the partner who you concede with if they choose to be part of that experience or not. And then there, or whoever your mate is, or your spouse, etc. Whoever volunteers to be part of that journey with you and your children, and then it expands from that point. But initially, it is an internal process. So when we get to relating with other people, it's really, really helpful to have those people also aware of what you desire, what your wants are, how you view things, and how you see the world. And there could be some clash, and there could be some conflict, there could be some disagreement. And a lot of times that can happen in pregnancy where people don't feel that they are in alignment with other people. And that's why I say gaining that confidence regarding the type of birth that you want to have or that type of care you want to receive is essential so that you can be your advocate first internally, and then you can start to have other people reflect that back to you. And another thing that I did to have a natural birth was creating affirmations. I created my own birth affirmations, super big on hypnosis and subliminals. And hearing my own voice was way more powerful than anything else I saw online. At that time, I was identifying as Black, as indigenous, and I needed these representations in the media to assist me. And I was like, I do not see any. I'm listening to all these voices who don't look like me, who don't know my life experience. And so I had to create a symbol for myself. And that symbol was myself. I put a picture of myself when I was pregnant on YouTube, recorded my affirmations, found some free binaurals, put it together, and I loved it. And it was so helpful. And I listened to it all the time, as often as I could, in the background when I'm doing stuff. I have free time, actively in meditation. And of course, I also listen to other affirmations too, just to help me be well-rounded and to consider other perspectives. But I was very selective about what I was listening to. I made sure that it was in alignment with the type of birth I wanted to have. So if they're talking about my doctor is supportive, I wasn't really listening to that because I wanted at that time to have a home birth, right? So finding kind of your niche in your birthing experience and your pregnancy is going to be helpful to creating that outcome. And again, if it's not to deny or to erase these things as a possibility, because all of these things are possible, but more so to hone in on exactly what it is you want, but also to be prepared in case these things don't happen, that these are the possibilities of what could happen, right? So then you start to say, okay, it's like going to a car lot. Like, okay, I could get a Sorento, I could get a Telluride, I could get a GT, or that's probably not even like a type of Kia, but this is the type of car that I want. I want the Telluride because it has the big trunk, it has the system that I need. I have all these children, so I need space for them, and I like the color options that it has. Cool. Then you get there, okay, dang, we don't have a Telluride for another 2 months. Your options now are Sorento, or you wait the 2 months. That's how you look at your birth options. It's not so much about, and everything about birth too is the same thing echoing about how you manifest in your life. Right? These things we're doing daily. When we talk about creation, when we talk about your womb space, when we talk about how to flow and be part of that process and surrender, it's about recognizing which shifts to make in order to play the game, in order to create that result and to get that outcome. So that's something that's really important. And trusting yourself, relaxing, knowing how to get into that state of surrender, And for some people, breathing is not how they surrender. I'm just going to say it for you, okay? There's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to shout and to yell and to moan and to groan and to scream or to be in complete silence. People handle that experience differently depending on who they are, what they experience, how they perceive things, and what it is that they feel they're capable of. So that also results in a mindset shift too, or what's needed is a mindset shift. Wow, that's a tongue twister, huh? To create those things. So a lot of what helped me to trust myself was, before I would kind of pick up other people's confidence around me, their confidence in me to do these things, and that would kind of be reassuring, right? But I really noticed where that came from was knowing, like, all this preparation I did for this moment, to know that this is something that I can get through, right? I'm more than capable of doing these things. That's when I go into my affirmations again and having that self-talk and that preparation and connecting with my baby and checking in that way and just ultimately letting go, because this baby is going to come out. Whether I choose to push it out, whether it's fetal ejection reflex, whether I end up having a C-section because I want to avoid pain or because there is an emergency and there's danger, it's going to happen. I'm already giving birth. So, and it's easy to look at things backwards and to understand them that way than maybe to see what's happening looking forward, because it's the unknown, right? Or it's perceived as the unknown, but we do know what's going on a deep, deep, deep level. We are still one with everything around us, okay? Water, oh my goodness. Being in a bath, being in hot water or like warmish water was so comforting for me during labor. Was absolutely essential during my pregnancy, for my aches, for my soreness, for the round ligament pain, for just getting some personal time to connect with myself after feeling like my body does not belong to me, right? There's so much power in water because of that memory that's stored and how ancient it is, that just really allows you to submerge into that feeling of femininity, to be whole, to be carried, to know that you are not heavier and your burdens are not heavier and your worries and your fears are not heavier than the love that the universe has for you, right? That the abundance and that life force is also flowing through you. It is you, and it's here for you to also serve you and assist you. So in birth, hypnotherapy can be really helpful. Hydrotherapy can be really helpful. Having that mindset, combining meditation and being in the water, was incredible. So a lot of times in the bath, I would listen to my affirmations, or I'd listen to guided meditations, or I'd speak to myself and do those womb practices with my baby. And also drinking plenty of water. Being dehydrated can stall a labor very quickly. So making sure that you have enough water to keep yourself and your energetic levels where it needs to be. As my daughter's running water, I've heard her. She's calm. She's doing her thing. So it didn't really bother me. Nova, can you turn off the water, please? Thank you. Come watch the tablet. So, and one of the final things on here was about perspective shift and reprogramming. This is with everything. How we view things, how we interpret things determines the way that we then experience life itself. And when it comes to pregnancy and birth, I made these shifts that I spoke to you about. In a bed, pushing on my back, unless that's what I decide to do. That, I was gonna have this elaborate baby shower, and I was gonna be madly in love with the person who's there, and who, like my partner, or that person who I had sex with to get pregnant, is gonna be part of my life, and we're gonna raise this child. All these images associated with going back to birth and childbirth and labor, marriage, the things that would be a part of that union, because that's kind of what takes place already when you're having sex and you do conceive with someone else, or when you're moving with sexual energy in general, right? my finances. What did I think about babies? Did I feel like they were an expense, or was it an asset? Was it an investment? Did I feel like I wasn't prepared? I didn't have the things I thought I should have in order to be a good mom, right? So parenting, looking at my past wounds, my previous wounds, sexuality. How do I even feel about my vagina and my vulva? If someone's going to be in a room looking at me, am I comfortable with that? Am I uncomfortable with that? Because being in a space when you're around people during labor, if you've never been around people, now some people are voyeurs, right? I've talked about this before. There are people who are exhibitionists sexually, right? So they may not care about being in a room full of people looking at them while they're giving birth. For someone else, that could be extremely uncomfortable and stall their labor, right? So all of these things are considered in order to have an integrated experience with, one, your baby being present and active in the process, but also with what's happening to your spirits in that level, because there are certain things that happen in your life as a result of your alignment to it, and not in a way of like, oh, this is the blame thing. But we all have been affected in some way by other people, by other people's beliefs, by their traditions, by the culture that surrounds us, by everyone else's idea of things and their ignorance of things as well that can also influence you, and the things that they're also unconscious of that are dictating their behaviors and the way that they engage with you. So that was huge for me, to reprogram, to get to know myself, to get to know the world around me and how they're seeing things, and to also not take it personally, to not make it so that I'm a victim of these things that are happening externally, and the reason why I'm suffering is because they are doing it to me, because they are not. They are doing these things that they feel is going to get a certain result or outcome, because they were taught that this works for them, or this works for other people. So these are the things that helped me to have a natural birth. Ultimately, everything went smoothly with both births, even if they didn't go as I thought they would, even if it wasn't as I planned initially. I was able to adapt and be flexible and to flow, which is one of the most important things you can do in order to give birth naturally, because you're already in flow. It's just to remove obstructions as they come along, because usually there will be attempts for things to come along. Just like in life, there will be things that are meant to throw you off your square, but if you stay centered in that, then you can do anything, really. So thanks for watching. I'm going to post this on YouTube as well. Feel free to play this back, comment, let me know if there are other topics you want me to talk about. This is a really important topic, and I hope to see more birth keepers, more doulas, more midwives speaking about, things from also their personal experience, but what it takes as a being to remember how to navigate life, and how all of these things are connected. Birth is connected, life is connected, sex and death, because then we can take off that pressure of ourselves to perform, because we're already doing it. We already are it and being it. And it doesn't have to be more complex than that. And when we realize that we have more options than we think we do, we can just meet those options when we get to those, levels, those checkpoints, if you will, because we're not trying to overly prepare for things that haven't happened yet. So thanks for watching. Next time.